to be young, gifted, and black, we all know what it's like to be told that there is not a place for you to be featured, yet you are young, gifted, and black. We know what it's like to be told to say there's not a screen for you to be featured on, a stage for you to be featured on. We know what it's like to be the tail and not the head. We know what it's like to be beneath and not above. And that is what we went to work with every day, because we knew not that we would be around during award season or that it would make $1 billion, but we knew that we had something special that we wanted to give the world, that we could be full human beings in the roles that we were playing, that we could create a world that exemplified a world that we wanted to see. We knew that we had something that we wanted to give, and to come to work with every day and to solve problems with this group of people every day with this director. That is something that I wish all actors would get the opportunity to experience. If you get to experience that, you will be a fulfilled artist. Now, the question of, what's that second question? The question of, you know, will we be around? Don't give me the music. The question of will we be around during award season, I just have to say, you know, it's a pleasure to be celebrated by you, to be loved by you. And one thing I do know, did it change the industry? I know that you can't have a Black Panther now without a 2 on it. So we love you and we celebrate it.
Great night. Congratulations to everybody.
And welcome to the show.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 17 Waverly Podcast. This is Ram, Gab, and Angelo. Say hello, boys.
Hello.
Hey.
Not the happiest of episodes.
No, definitely more on a somber note this week.
Yeah. I continue my technical difficulties. Yeah. So, Chadwick.
Yes, we had a different episode aligned for you. Of course, the one thing that we're making sure continues no matter what is our technical difficulties.
100%, because that's always how we continue our life.
Podcast.
Consistency, you know what I mean?
Consistency is the key. Had a different episode planned, of course.
Correct.
Last Friday, August 28th, we learned of the shocking and tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman, our Black Panther. So it only felt right that this week we shuffle. We do our typical, also very in our tradition, so it's not out of character for us, do a shuffle and focus this week on films that pertain to Chadwick Boseman.
Yep. Movies that he starred in. We've all seen, at this point, hopefully everyone has seen Black Panther.
Yeah, if you have a pulse, you've seen Black Panther.
Yeah, and we have that on the screen. So we won't really go too far into Black Panther, which is kind of the movie that I would say crossed him over into like almost superstardom. Like,
I think it was the big break for him.
Right.
Because he had been in stuff before Black Panther, but this was the movie that put him on the map. I think the more blunt way to put it, it's the thing that made him transcend past just black famous.
Right.
He's not just like straight up famous.
Right, correct. He's just a famous. I mean,
very talented, gifted,
known in all households, not just black households.
Now he's like, this was the thing that made him just like a common like superstar name.
Correct.
And I think at the end of the episode we can talk about maybe dabble a little bit. I think it's still I don't know, like a level of appropriateness about the future of the MCU and the Black Panther in the role, but I think it is still worth talking about the legacy of that character.
Right.
And the air of that moving forward.
Right.
Because I think even regardless, as we're going to focus, as you said, everyone's seen Black Panther, so we don't want to spend too much time speaking about this particular movie, but I think it's still worth touching about just what this means moving forward, what that role has meant, and you know, just I guess the air of it, the air of the character.
Right. And we like we said before, decided, okay, this episode we'll all pick a Chadwick movie and kind of discuss that. So the 3 movies that we selected were Get On Up, 42, and Marshall. I don't know if there was a particular
Not Marshall. I
reason.
think it was called. Was it called Marshall or called Thurgood?
I'm pretty sure it's just called Marshall.
Marshall.
Yeah.
Oh
Marshall.
man, I hear. I was thinking it was called Thurgood. I'm an idiot.
No. I there wasn't a particular reason we picked these 3 movies. It just so happens that these 3 movies are movies where he played and represented a very, very famous, an important figure in the African American community. So,
Yeah, I think looking at his IMDb, looking at all the projects he's done, I think there's a very clear thing between pre-Captain America Civil War, which made his debut in the MCU, and post-Captain America Civil War. All 3 of these movies, of course, happened before he starred in Civil War. I think it was actually all 3 came out before he was even cast as T'Challa, Black Panther, because that was announced in 2014.
Right.
But now we know that in 2016, I guess, around the time that movie came out and he catapulted to superstardom, was when he learned that he had stage 3 colon cancer.
Okay, right.
Right.
So so I think it's still hard for me to wrap my mind around the fact that all of the movies, all of the physical preparation to become a superhero and to maintain it, and then and I'm sure that the press junket for Marvel has to be way more excruciating or way more taxing than it is to promote a movie like 42 and Get On Up, which, even though they're relevant and great films, they're definitely low. They're definitely lower in that like phenomenon. They're not phenomenon movies, right? They're not expect to be these giant ass blockbusters.
Right.
So I think to know how much he did post from 2016 until he passed, that's insane.
Yeah.
That really is crazy to think about that.
These 3 movies, like Romelli, like you said, I think it is. This is the first time that I've seen all 3 of these movies.
So he was diagnosed with
stage 3
colon cancer in what year?
2016.
2016.
And the 2016 was when Captain America: Civil War came out. Of
Right.
course, we don't know exactly when in that year he was diagnosed, but we know around that time was when that happened.
Right. So he did Civil War. He did
Black Panther.
He did Black Panther. He did
Infinity War.
He did Marshall, which is in 2017.
Oh, Marshall was 20. Okay, Marshall was 2017.
Yes. He did a message from the King, which is another movie that he did. It didn't do as great as the other ones, but he did that one in 2016.
Mm-hmm. The most recent, Defy Bloods, came out.
And then he did 21 Bridges in 2019.
Yep, 21 Bridges.
And then he did the Five Bloods in 2020.
And then he has one film left to come out.
And he has one more that they finished, but he didn't star in. But regardless, he's in.
It's
and that's coming out for Netflix this year, I believe.
And it was announced earlier today that he was supposed to go into training and preparation for Black Panther 2 this month.
Right.
Wow.
43 years young, he passed.
43 years young.
That's really great.
Which is it's insane to say that someone's life would end at 43. It's
cancer, man. I mean, and the fact it's this, to me, it's the scariest thing in the world because you just don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And to live like that, for me, I really do consider myself a giant ass scaredy cat. And if someone told me, like, hey, this is how advanced this is, so you can kind of see in the horizon the possibility of, well, like, the end. Yeah. And I just think it's so crazy to, not even crazy, like, just, like, holy shit, this man decided, even though he'd already been acting and had done all this incredible work up until that point, he still kept pushing, keeping his focus on his mission and on his craft. And he didn't tell a soul. He didn't even tell Marvel Studios.
Yeah, that's the shocking part when you start hearing about people that were like following him around, whether they're doing stories on him or just trying to get a glimpse into his everyday life. That these people were blindsided by the news because they were following him around, and they had no idea that this man was that ill.
Yeah,
and that's I think just it says so much about him as a person, as an actor.
Yeah, he's
to be able to just push forward, like Gab said, and really commit to the craft and all that. It's amazing.
Yeah, you could
Very
tell
brave.
how important it was for him to do these things, to play these roles, especially for his community. And I mean, also big ups to his family and friends who no one leaked anything.
Yeah.
Like
Honestly.
no one sneakily said, "Hey, by the way,
He was dealing with it
Chadwick's
privately.
sick." So and his family knew, and I read an article today that there were about maybe 4 or 5 people outside of his family that knew.
And out of that, and then I have to say 2 things to that. One, it has to show if he was scheduled to go into prep for Black Panther 2 this month, it meant that this man was absolutely giving no bending to fear of this thing is going to beat me.
Correct.
This man was
Right.
going 1,000,000%. I'm going to beat this shit.
Right.
Like that was his attitude. That's what that tells you. Number 1, and number 2. God, I'm blanking because I'm like, sorry, this is rough. And then number 2, God, what was I gonna say? I'm sorry, I knew I was gonna blank, but yeah, like that's
it's a testament to him. I mean, it's a beautiful thing that like you were saying.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Before I lose it again, it makes me feel that in all those interviews that I've seen of him, and all those like at press stuff or like being interviewed or talk shows or stuff like that, it makes me feel almost to a degree like, damn, we didn't then in a lot of, I mean, because when I picked up on him post 2016,
Right.
there's so much of him that we probably didn't see because this was probably such a big thing on his shoulders,
Right.
that he wasn't revealing or expressing or talking about. So so like to live so, I guess, in discretion.
Right.
I wonder what, if that wasn't the case, what it would have.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, man. I can't think of what that scenario would be like for me. And I'm not someone who's in the limelight at all. So it's like
Exactly.
It's got to be such a crazy thing to battle with, knowing that you're sick like that, but then also understanding that what you already are in society is a very big thing.
Yeah.
Like he's Black Panther. Like that is a huge thing for a person. That's a lot of pressure for a regular person. But it seems like someone like him, that kind of stuff obviously doesn't matter. But
it's like, for me, again, the primarily just such a comic book nerd, and like this is my bread and butter. Like he wasn't done.
Right.
Like this is
No.
the thing that like just the tragedy, of course, of like so young, 43 years old, and besides the MCU stuff, of course, there was. That the actor watching these 3 movies, and I could see his full range of like what he could do. I'm like,
Right.
this dude had this was probably like the next Denzel.
Yep.
This
Yep.
guy could have
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. I think he was really just scratching the surface of his
talent.
brilliance.
This
Yeah.
guy was getting ready to take off like completely. Like, there's so much more he could have done and would have done. And then for my selfish ass comic book nerd 30-year-old self, I'm like, Black Panther was gonna be the next fucking big thing of the MCU.
Yep.
He was like, there was no doubt about that. Black Panther was going to be front and center. There was no doubt about that he was going to take that shit like over. Now that Iron Man and Captain America were basically retired, you needed new head figures. And the truth is, not to make it all businessy, Spider-Man still belongs to Sony, so you can't put all cash in on Spider-Man
Right,
as the
right.
MCU. And Captain Marvel's too divisive because, well, sexism. And
Of course.
who does that leave you with?
Yeah.
Black Panther was literally going to be their front guy. There was no doubt about
Right.
that.
And again, he's someone that transcends just one specific community. Like everyone was a fan of Black Panther.
Yeah.
So that alone kind of just got you like you could tell that was a good base for them to continue with. But it's super sad.
But tonight we want to talk about
we'll recognize him for not
his
just
work.
Black Panther, but his actual work. So we'll start with Get On Up.
Yeah.
It's the James Brown movie. I'll let Angelo kind of take it away there with explaining what it's about and what it is.
Yeah. So you got Get On Up, which came out in 2014. It's directed by Tate Taylor. It's a bio musical, I guess you can kind of say, and it depicts the life's times, the ups, the downs of James Brown.
Yep.
And it's crazy because I didn't see this film until having to watch it for this episode.
Right.
And there were, at first, my eyes were not on the screen. I might have been checking a text message or something. But the first note that he hits sounding like James Brown, I literally thought that they were just replaying a record or something.
Did he actually, do we know if he actually recorded or was it just dubbed?
So pieces of it might have been dubbed. I don't know for sure.
Right.
But even when he's just speaking in the character, he nails that voice. It's a southern drawl, but it's raspy. He killed it.
No, yeah. The first thing I noticed too was he really you could tell he definitely did his research on James.
Yeah.
And he really kind of studied and really tried to understand how it is that James speaks and even how he dances.
Right, and that, I would say
really
not even the choreography in this movie. You can't say enough about that because he makes that look so easy.
Yeah.
And as someone who can't dance, whenever I see people that can dance, I'm automatically jealous.
Right.
But to see how he could glide across the stage and it really did appear to be James Brown.
For sure.
The makeup, everything, the hair, it was so on point.
Yep.
And like you said, he definitely had to put time into learning how James spoke. He did put emphasis on different words, and he did have a different way about him, talking in the third person, all of that.
You could tell he even throughout the movie while he's speaking, you'll see he has he puts his jaw out kind of like an underbite or overbite or whichever one it is.
Yeah, like an under where exactly
where the
James
bottom
obviously
jaw kind of comes out more. And he's not like that normally. The whole movie I'm thinking is, does he actually have that underbite normally? But no, it's all part of what he's trying to do here with how James Brown was.
He really did a complete transformation for that role. That was very well done.
Exactly. He really transformed into the character.
Yeah,
and
out of all the movies that I've seen, this is the one that he's transformed the most into somebody else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I did love the three films that we chose where he's playing someone who existed in real life.
Yeah.
Like he's in the movie Draft Day, and he's just playing a football player. But in these three movies, he's playing iconic people.
Yes, and that's an important thing to touch on is the fact that he chooses these roles that are, iconic people. James fucking Brown, you know what I mean? Everything. James Brown wasn't the greatest guy. You could tell by the movie.
Yeah, no, he was definitely no saint by any means.
Of course,
but he was absolutely an important figure.
Right. And the movie the movie shows. The movie shows, and these are things that I was learning as well because I had never. I knew James Brown. I knew what he looked like, what he sounded like, how he danced. I knew some of his songs. But again, when you watch these kind of movies, you end up learning a whole lot about these characters. The same way we did with the Queen movie and Elton John movie.
Those it's musical biopics.
Yeah, but you learn the core of the depth of why they became who they became, and that's when you start to feel Jesus, these people kind of. You can understand why some of these people were meant and born to be these kind of artists.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just go ahead.
No, I was just go. No, you can finish.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say exactly. You can just learn so much from these movies, and that's why I like having to do this type of research for our episodes. Is because I learn so much about whether it's history or a person that I might have just knew maybe a little something about. Like James Brown, like you said, I knew the music. and I knew the look, but didn't know the in-depth stuff. And you learn about like the growing up, basically living in the woods.
Right, the woods.
With a really dysfunctional parenting base.
Yeah.
You know, like, and then his dad basically gives him up to a brothel, and
his mom,
all that's
his mom leaves. His mom leaves. The dad and the mom had a severely abusive relationship.
I think one of the things about these movies that I really appreciate, and I think it's when they're done well, is that like a film like should never be like your principal class for how to learn history, but if what it ultimately does is gets you curious into wanting to discover the actual facts, such as his performance in Boston, I think it was, that night where the people were coming on stage, is right after the assassination
that was a great part of
MLK, and everything that he does in that scene and says, I'm like, this movie provides so many moments and things where you're like, is that how that happened? Right. Is that the truth? Is this? Of course, a lot of it did align. And then if it sparks a curiosity to make you dive into history on these figures, to me that's one of how these things succeed. That they pull you into the actual history.
Yeah.
So for the James Brown stuff, that particular scene about the performance in Boston right after the MLK assassination, and people were getting rowdy and getting on stage, and how he was able to quell the situation and connect with the audience.
And then and then at some point on, like the people start jumping on the stage, but then the cops are pushing them off. Right. And he's telling these white cops, let him go.
Let him go,
alone.
Right. But he became all about, and this was something I didn't personally know about James Brown, of how he was very pro-black, but also about using his position, his art, his power to move his people and community forward.
Right.
Yes.
And to how to really kind of, and also he clearly had the traumas, like we're talking about, how the conditions in which he grew up with his parents, and we saw within the film he absolutely mimicked some of those behaviors in his personal relationship and inherited bad habits and stuff like that, and how he practiced within his own relationships in life. Right. But at the same time, he really went from, he went from nothing. Yeah. And I don't just mean financially, emotionally. There was no emotional support. Right. There was no mom and father figure that were committed to sticking around.
Both parents abandoned him.
Basically, yeah.
He grows up in a brothel, gets in and out of jail, trouble. Is because he's by himself.
Little kid, he was promoting, promoting the brothel on the street, and but I still like how he was able to take that. What an example! You take that energy, but still, you're always looking forward. You're always moving forward and trying to make the best of the situation. So I think it's just. Yes, he was extremely talented. Yeah,
you could tell he had that musical,
But I refuse to believe that. But talent is not the winner. Right. It's commitment. It's your perspective. It's your perseverance. Yeah. It's what you believe. That's what's going to create reality for you. And make no doubt, there are thousands of talented people.
Right.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of just extremely talented people, but it's your persistence and how you don't give up and how you discipline yourself to achieve those goals.
Those are the people that cross over into that next level of superstardom.
For sure.
It isn't just about. I mean, this is a kid that you can see through the movie. This is a kid that continuously getting in trouble. Losing his parents, having to be alone, and understanding I'm by myself here. I need to figure this out. I got to keep pushing.
I think this is the work I get corny. The film, yes, he's very much, I'm by myself, I'm on my own, I'm looking out just for myself because I'm the only person I can count on. Mm-hmm. But throughout the movie, it actually did give him an exceptional best friend.
Yes.
Yeah,
and the movie towards the end shows his gradual learning of you're not by yourself.
You're not by yourself.
And he doesn't really realize it sadly until he's very old.
Yeah,
but you do see that
he gets to understand you were as determined as you were to push people away.
Right. Your parents might have abandoned you, but not everyone's going to do that.
Not everyone's going to do that. Some people were really committed to you even in your bullshit.
Right.
And that's a big lesson from the movie.
Yeah, when he has that conversation with his mother, when she comes to the show, and then like it kind of pans backwards to when he's like trying to do work for the brothel, he actually sees her,
right, and she doesn't acknowledge him at all.
Exactly, she just like shakes him off, and so when they have that conversation, and he's
Very
like,
powerful.
he's like, yeah, that was kind of rough on me.
Did he
like,
not
watch
get
because I got
nominated for
a little choked up because that's deep, and he's like telling her, he's like, I'm not your son. We know that. Like no one done anything for me. I did it all myself. I did it all for my own. And then he basically kind of just sends her off with like a couple dollars in her pocket. And then as soon as his boy comes in the room, he's doubled over. He's crying. With all the hate that he was feeling, he still made sure to tell him whatever she needs, you take care of her.
Right.
Like make sure she never needs anything.
My favorite part. That's my favorite part about that whole scene. It's the fact that he said what he had to say to her because he had to say it.
Right.
But regardless of all that anger and all that hatred that he had in his heart because of the fact that she abandoned him and left him and all this and didn't acknowledge him, at the end, regardless, because of the fact that it's still his mother, she still gave birth to him, he wouldn't be there without her.
Right.
After she's already left the room, he goes, make sure she's taken care of. So it's like that little thing. It's like it's such an important and key little scene there that.
Well, James Brown didn't seem like it. Kind of, I think. What's so tone setting for the movie is how it starts with that flight in Vietnam.
To Vietnam.
When he's going to that concert. This is the one thing I did. It's the biggest thing from the movie that I didn't look into if it was true or not. Like that they were like basically being shot at as they were trying to get to the on the plane, and how everyone's panicking, and he's like it's not going to take us down. Like he's basically just not worried at all about the situation
because he's like been through worse shit.
He's like, God didn't let me live through all this stuff that I've lived through just to take me down on a plane now.
I think it's just that in particular is just so. I think it's just a tone setter for the rest of the movie and kind of who they're showing him as and like how they're portraying him. That this wasn't really someone who let things get him down too long. Like, kind of mimicking again once more. Like he seemed to be very about wanting to look forward, look to the positive. Like what can you not control?
Right.
And I think when it came to that thing about the mom, you're right. It's just like, it's one of those things that he's not going to be grudgy about. He's going to let it, and also at the same time, I don't know about his particular attitude toward his mom, who's played by Viola Davis, but I don't think, what I appreciate about Viola Davis, about the performance and I guess how they portrayed his mother in the film, was that there was nuance to it. He wasn't. Yes, she did abandon him. She didn't acknowledge him when she saw him there. When she was with the guy, when he came running, but when she was leaving, she tried to go back and get him.
Right.
But the guy came out with a gun and basically shoot her away.
Right. She didn't entirely not want him. It was just,
which is the truth of everyone. Which is the truth of all people. I think we always want, when we're trying to portray bad parents or bad supports, it always goes into the 100% portraying them as negative, which is so rarely the case. Even within very toxic situations or unsupportive loved ones, there are glimpses of good. There are moments of endearment. Like that's what makes the separation or the breaking of toxic relationships so difficult.
Right.
If they were 1,000,000% toxic, you just cut that shit off and be like, okay, bye. But but it's the thing sometimes that we hold on to is those maybe very few, but very real moments of tenderness. Right. And although we didn't really see any in the film, I think seeing her wanting to run back and get him, but there's no options in her hand. In her hand, the guy's coming out with a gun, and he's not going to let her take him.
Right.
And at the same time, I guess you're right. It's one of the things where I don't judge her choice to stay in the abusive relationship here, like with that, or
plus, I mean, these are people that are about they're in severe poverty. They're living in the woods.
Right.
This is like 1939. Like this
like
is
the quality of life is not great here. It's just one of those things where
If you don't know better, you can't do better.
yes, yeah,
exactly. There you
yeah.
go.
And I think that's what she really represented. Of course, it looked shitty to show up once your son's like a big superstar, and that's when you're coming, and you're really only there for money.
Right.
But at the same time, this is a woman who probably has only ever known her entire life survive.
Surviving, trying to
Yeah,
get,
no,
get
exactly.
something. Yeah, right.
And as
So-
James Brown puts it in the movie a few times, do right by you. You know,
right.
Yeah,
like
and
that's what she was doing, doing right by herself. I think that's a lesson that he learned through that.
for sure. I'm very surprised. I just checked. He wasn't nominated for anything for this movie, like any of like those big.
No,
Because that was, I'm sorry, that was for me watching him portray James Brown, especially when they put him in the makeup in the opening and towards the end, and like the,
right.
I'm like that's like fucking Oscar worthy nomination
No,
performing.
absolutely, man. They did a great job. One of my there's one part of this movie that I like a little more than everything else after I found out that Mick Jagger from the Rolling Stones was a producer on the film.
Oh wow, I didn't.
Oh,
know
I didn't know that either.
Near the beginning of the movie, where he's like they're telling him, "Hey, listen, like you're gonna go on first, and the Rolling Stones are going on second."
yeah, I like
And
that
like
too.
he was basically throwing a tantrum,
Yeah,
and he's like, "All right, cool." He's like, "All right, I'll show him up." And he's doing the track, and then they pan over to I guess what would be a young Mick Jagger
Yep.
backstage, and he's like doing like the head nod thing,
yeah.
and then like he walks off. He's like, "Hey, welcome to America."
Yep.
Mick Jagger actually said when he was interviewed for the movie, being like, I'll be the first one to tell you that I stole so many moves from James Brown. He's like, I was such a fan of this man
Yeah,
because he's just so talented and like he just had that groove, that funk.
absolutely. You can see
And-
it. You can see it when you watch Mick Jagger on stage.
Exactly.
He'll do that little foot shuffle too sometimes.
Yeah, he's got like this. Once I read that, I was like, holy shit! Like, yeah, you definitely did like rob this guy blind of his gimmick.
Yeah.
I mean, that wouldn't be the first. I mean, there's a lot of. I think there's a
Exactly.
lot
Of
of
course,
black
of course.
artists that white artists took.
I mean, there's a scene in the movie later on where it's when he officially kind of breaks up with his best friend Bobby Bird or Robbie Bird, whichever one it is. Where Bobby is explain they had just finished the show and Bobby's on stage sitting next to him and he's like, one of these days I'm going to fill up an arena like this, and James just gets pissed,
Right.
because of course he doesn't trust anybody. He doesn't think anybody's actually there for him. He just assumes that everyone's gonna try to fuck him over like his parents did. So James immediately gets pissed. He's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" So then Bobby's just like, he's just saying, "Look, I mean, it's just a dream that I have. You know what I mean? I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. It's just a dream that I have." And then I was just talking to my friend about it. And James is like, "Look, what are you trying to do? You trying to copy me? You trying to be me?"
Right.
Like, there's a million people out there that have already copied me. So you can already tell that right there. He's already seen that what he's given to the world from a creative standpoint. Like, many people have tried to recreate because at that point he was already really big.
I think there's another scene too in the movie. I think it's more towards the beginning where he's got the shotgun and
Oh my God,
which
that was
is
so
just
funny.
an amazing.
Which, by
process.
the way, that story is true.
that is true, right?
Yeah. So like that even at the end, because the movie starts with him older and he shoots the gun in the insurance room because of the insurance building because someone took a shit in his bathroom next
Right.
door. So then he actually does eventually get in a car chase with police. He does
Right.
keep driving, ramming through police cars. He was high, I think, on like PCP at the time.
It was I think it was like angel dust and weed.
Yeah.
Angel Dust.
Listen. The guy lived a crazy life.
Yeah, I mean, that's
But
just
like he does say, like in that scene, he says like, "You might not know who I am, you might not know any of my music,
Right.
but if you go home, you take a record off of your shelf and put it in, there's a piece of me in there somewhere."
Right.
Because
Yeah.
like that's the influence he had. Like
Absolutely.
this guy was a bona fide star.
He's from what I read, he's the most sampled artist. I think they even say it at the end of the movie. He's the most sampled artist in music.
I believe
the history
that.
of music.
I thoroughly
So
believe
like
that.
people for like beats for songs, like they'll take snippets of his chords, of his voice, of his what beats, like, and then just kind of mix that into their stuff.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Because
I
of
didn't know that.
how good his stuff was musically. So yeah, really, really well done. I mean, I thought it was entertaining from the start.
Yeah, this
It
is
was
one of
really
those
good.
movies that it had me at the beginning, and it
Yeah.
I didn't really feel bored at all. Like I was actually entertained, and I think that's the way they shot it, just kind of jumping from
Yeah, I mean that
timeline
part-
to timeline.
The jumping at first was kind of confusing because it's like they were going kind of back and forth,
Right.
And there was like a little period where like you couldn't tell if what was playing was the present or the past
Right.
because he hadn't changed his like style up yet.
Right.
Like obviously you can tell when he was a kid and when he's an adult, but once they started going back and forth in between the middle years, that's
Yeah,
when
once
I
he
was
has
kinda
a-
confused.
Yeah,
But-
once he had a perm the whole time, it was kind
Yeah.
of hard to
but
pick
then
up on.
after I think it was after the Boston show where then after that he does Say It Louder on Black and I'm Proud, that song, and then he goes back to he stops perming his hair, he goes to the afro. Once he does that, and then that movie starts kind of going like in a regular pace, like just
Right.
fast forwarding normally. But yeah, really good movie. A very interesting, watch. Definitely recommend it for anybody who hasn't seen it and wants to know more about James Brown.
Definitely.
42.
42.
Jackie Robinson. Everyone knows who the hell. Everyone should know who Jackie Robinson.
Yeah, if you don't know who Jackie Robinson is, you can get the
You
hell
can get the
out.
hell out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even I know. I don't even know baseball, but I know that.
Right, exactly. So this is one of the first movies that I had seen that he was in.
Although,
ahead.
even though I don't really know baseball, but I know who Jackie Robinson is. I think it's just really quick out of the get go with this movie. It was a movie that didn't show that really. Like the statement, Jackie, like I don't know how you guys remember when you learned it in school, but the way I remember it was very pitched as, no pun intended,
Yeah.
As
Well
sorry,
done. Well done.
Jackie Robinson, the first black man to play in the major leagues.
Right.
That's the pitch we got.
Right.
What this movie made very clear is like, bitch, it was Jackie Robinson, the first black man allowed to
Right,
play
yeah.
in the
Yes.
major leagues. Like, it was not like Jackie Robinson got to play in the major leagues and everything was fine then.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
like,
no.
no.
Right.
You
Yeah.
missed a big chunk.
Exactly.
Social studies class.
Like right from the get go, you get an understanding of what's his name? Harrison Ford is the owner. It seems I think he's the owner of the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Branch Rickey.
Yes, Branch Rickey. What year is it? I think it's 1946.
It's after the Second World War.
46 or
yeah,
47.
I think it's 45.
Something like
Because
that.
I think he wins rookie. I thought he won the Rookie of the Year in 45. I could be wrong about
it's something
that.
like that. It's give or take a year or two.
Okay.
It's around there. So you've got the movie will starts you off with this owner saying, you know what, let's change things up. I'm gonna add a black player to our team, and he's gonna go through the same system. He's got to work his way up, but we got to change things up a little bit. Why? Because money isn't different colors. It's green. It isn't black or white. It's fucking green, as he says in the movie. Mm-hmm. And why would I not add a black athlete to my team when I can then open that up to way more fans? Because now you've got all these black people that want to see an athlete of theirs representing them in the league. So beautiful. Okay, he does it. He sets it up. Everyone's kind of pissed. They're like, "What are you doing?" Of course, Jackie Robinson is a shortstop in the Negro Leagues for the Monarchs, Kansas City Monarchs, I believe.
Yes, he's in the Monarchs system.
And he's very good. He gets scouted. They choose him, and a big reason also why they choose him is because you can tell that he's hot-headed enough to be able to withstand the abuse that he was going to get. because somebody that's weak would not have been able to handle
Exactly, and that's something that Harrison Ford or Branch Rickey in the movie says a lot, that he's built for this. Like
Right.
he's tough. He's got thick skin.
Exactly.
And you need it to be. I mean,
Exactly.
that one scene where he's actually on the Dodgers and the jackass manager for the Phillies is just saying every derogatory thing possible.
Everything.
And he composed himself, and then he went into the tunnel, and he did what he had to do. He got all that frustration out, but that happened friggin' everywhere, man. That happened even when he was playing for the Montreal Royals.
Yep.
For that brief period of time.
Exactly. It's one of the, and like in the movie, with the way they show his arrival to training camp in Florida with the minor league team, and then just like the first thing you realize is, all right, you've got this black athlete. No one wants black athletes in the league, so of course now he's going to show up, and you want to see what his teammates' reaction is going to be first, because the rest of the league, it is what it is. He's not on their team, so it doesn't matter. But the important thing here is, how is his possible new team going to react? Because sports it's camaraderie. It's you got to band together. Like there isn't one player. These are multiple players.
Multiple.
One goal in mind, to win a fucking game. So you need to make sure that you got each other's back. You're defending each other. Like, that's how it has to be, or you're not going to be successful in sports.
Right. And I think that's like what you start seeing more and more as the movie progresses.
Right.
And that one dude even tells him, he's like, what am I supposed to do? Like, you're my teammate. Like, we both want to win.
Exactly.
And it's like, and that's where I think those strengths start actually building. Like,
correct.
I mean, I don't believe that it was rainbows and butterflies after that for the whole season. I'm sure there was still more bullshit. But
it was definitely, there was. I think what we got in the movie, even though like there were scenes where you're like, Jesus, this guy went through some fucking shit.
Yeah,
I think that was a tiny amount of what he really went through.
No, absolutely.
It was definitely much worse. The fans and the crowd. He definitely heard some fucked up shit, saw some fucked up shit, had to deal with fucked up shit.
Mm-hmm. Like when they were in Cincinnati and like that little kid, and like that's the type of shit that like pisses me the hell off. Because that's kind of stuff that you're still kind of dealing with now. Is like like parents breeding that type of behavior out of their children. It's fucking absurd.
To speak to the little kid scene, I think the movie does a really good job of just dropping these little comments throughout, I guess, the environment or the peripheral of what's happening to him, that being one of them. I think it's so important to know about that scene that the little kid, first they introduce that little kid with his father having a very kind of cute father-son moment.
Right.
Like gee, that'll be great, Dad.
My favorite player's going to play today. I hope he does well. Like, he's like praying for the kid, for his player, Pokey.
Gee whiz, man.
But as a lover of movies, I recognize a sweaty, greasy man correlated to racism when I see one.
Right.
So I was like, something's going to happen with this guy. And then Jackie comes out, and then obviously the whole crowd erupts into the racist rant. Mm-hmm. This was a very heightened example, also in the 1940s during segregation, moment of you seeing how that toxicity and racism is inherited, how it's conditioned. Correct. But what needs to be understood and continue to be understood is that so many negative attitudes of our parents or from the people of what we grew up around are ingrained in us, and we need to learn how to, and especially when it comes to the conversation of race and how racism has adapted and evolved into modern culture and society.
Correct.
There needs to be a pause, and you need to really analyze what am I copying? What has conditioned me to the attitudes that I have? What am I missing? Because you have to have those self-reflections, and it's very possible, and these are the difficult conversations, your parents aren't saints. Mm-hmm. They might have participated in some racist shit. Right. The likelihood is high. We live in the United States. So I think that was seen as a really great moment of getting across how those things are inherited.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and like most, if not all, of Chadwick's movies that he's these roles that he's choosing, very, very important lessons sprinkled throughout all of them.
Absolutely.
You can tell that he doesn't choose roles that are just going to be for nothing.
Yes.
It's just a role. It's just, no, I'm going to choose a role that there's at least going to be a moment in this movie that will teach something about
right.
his life, his experiences as a black man, or whatever he wants to choose as a lesson.
I like that, and now that you mention it, I've seen him mention multiple times in different interviews that he turned down a lot of work because what they were asking him to play was to be a stereotypical supporting black character.
Right.
And he just was making a very conscious choice. I actually saw this like a little bit ago. He's just making a very conscious choice that I don't want to perpetuate stereotype. I don't want to, that's not how I want to give my energy. And I think, and had he not turned those things down, he might not have had the availability to do the roles that catapulted him into what he became.
Yep.
And I think he also made a great point by saying, like, you can be successful. You can, because all of those roles that he turned down, they might have still gotten him to the same destination of
100%.
fame.
Absolutely, yeah.
But he said, but if you aren't clear with who you are and what you represent and what you stand for, like at your core of what you are, then you can have the superficial success, but it's not going to hit or be in the same space internally with yourself if you're not being true to what you believe in.
Yep.
And I think that was just I think I would just really love that consciousness in terms of what he wanted to do with his career.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's Jackie Robinson. This Jackie Robinson movie is it's a really beautiful story overall. Other than obviously take out all the evil and disgusting, racist shit that he goes through.
Slurs and commentary.
The story is beautiful in terms of a guy that is not afraid to stand up for what he believes is right. He has talent, and he uses that for a much greater cause than just, I'm trying to be rich and move my own. Like, he understands from the beginning when what's his name? I keep blanking on his name. The owner of the Dodgers.
Branch Rickey.
When Ricky tells him, this is bigger than you. Like, us choosing you to do this is bigger than just you playing baseball.
Right.
And he understands that. He takes that and he swallows his pride when he's up against these racist pieces of shit where he can't talk back. And again, we'll mention that game with the Phillies manager, where he wants to beat the fucking shit out of him, but he understands that, and when Ricky tells him again in the dugout, this is bigger than you, man. Like, you represent something here that will change the world, change the generation, and I feel like that's kind of just the gist and the importance that you really get out of that movie is it's that. There's going to be people in this world that's what they're on Earth to do. That Jackie Robinson is one of those people that this is just what his mission was on Earth to change the world, and that's how he did. He did it with fucking baseball.
Baseball, right?
Like, it wasn't like he wasn't MLK, he wasn't Malcolm X. He was a guy that played a sport, but even in something what seems as simple as just playing a sport can be such a huge thing.
Mm-hmm. I think I completely agree, and I think another thing that the movie hits well on is to Harrison Ford's Ricky, that character, and that person in real life, I guess, who's the one who drafted or Jackie Robinson, the importance of having people in high positions of power and authority and decision-making positions who can advocate and speak for representation and for equality and equity in their sphere of work. In his case, he had the ability and power to recruit black players into his league.
Right.
So, of course, that's one industry, that's one sector. But as in the next movie we're about to talk about, Marshall, one quote is, like, the only way you knock on a bigot's doors by knocking it down.
Right.
And you need people in positions of power who are going to have that vision, who are going to have that mindset, that intelligence, that wisdom, that understanding, that extreme lack of the bigotry bullshit.
Right.
And I think that's something that the movie hit home really well. There would be no ability for Jackie Robinson to change baseball
Without the help of
Without the help.
if that, and I'm not saying, and I'm not trying to make it sound like a white savior thing. Absolutely
No,
not.
no,
Jackie
no.
Robinson held his own and did what he needed to do on the
Right.
field by himself.
Correct.
But this man, at least, he unlocked the door and then got out of the way.
Right,
and I think that's and try to create a condition where he could have support, like as he showed it with his wife, that she was the only wife allowed to be there with him during.
Right.
Yes.
That was great. Yeah.
So I think all of that stuff.
Just a great fucking guy. I mean, the owner, even when his first coach was kind of treating him like shit, he threatens to fire him if he doesn't.
And
he calls
right.
him the N-word, and he's like, "You're not calling him that, or you're dead, or
Yeah,
gone."
or you're out.
Yeah, and he said, like, I understand that's ingrained in your culture of
Southern
how
culture,
you
right.
right.
But
But he's
do-
like, that's
oh,
not how you're going to talk to my players. You're going
Right.
to manage them properly and
Correct.
conduct yourself professionally, and that's great. And like he was that person throughout the movie,
Yeah.
which was great.
Yep.
And I think, again, and thank you for reminding me, yes, zero fucking tolerance.
Yeah.
Right now, we're living in a time where people want to say, like, oh, I hate how everything has to be politically correct. That's not what we're talking about.
Right.
People are trying to hide through the shroud of political correctness. A, not knowing what political correctness means. And B, saying racist ass shit and doing racist ass shit and being caught on it and then having there be consequences for those actions
Right.
is not being politically correct. It's called
Yeah.
consequences for your bullshit bigotry.
Right.
That's what it is. Because that guy, it just reminds me that the guy that got drafted to Pittsburgh or something like that.
Yeah.
In the locker room,
player,
he was
yeah.
like, I was just speaking my mind. And he says, this isn't the America that I know.
Yeah.
Does it sound familiar?
Super
5
familiar.
people
Correct.
listening to this podcast.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
This
yeah.
movie was from 2012, 2013.
Yeah, 2013.
So this
Yeah,
is significantly before the beginning of BLM and what we're seeing right now. We're not a political podcast, but fucking deal with it. It shows you, this movie has so many moments where it shows you this conversation is not new. The issue is
not at
not
all.
new.
This has been going on for so far too long.
The dodging, no pun intended, of the actual.
This guy's on one tonight.
I'm on. Yeah, I'm on it.
He's on
the
the puns
dodging
today.
of calling the thing what it actually is has always been present,
Right.
and I think it's great. It's just great. And back then, that was pushing the envelope. Pushing the envelope was letting a black man play in the major leagues.
Yep.
I can't wait for another 60 years when we look back at this moment and go, they just wanted you to stop killing
There you go.
people.
Exactly.
That's all they were asking for.
Also, more props to Branch Rickey, who doubled down and added 2 other African American players to the team the next year.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
I believe they
they
won
the World Series. They won the World Series in 55, which is I think
Right,
like
that's
5
where
or 6
they
years
beat the
later.
Yankees.
Against the Yankees, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Oh yeah, and he said that Jackie Robinson actually stole home.
Yes.
in that series.
Game 1 of that World Series is his famous stealing home.
I honestly wish I have never seen it in baseball. I wish we lived in a day and age where that was more prevalent in baseball.
Sure, absolutely.
The balls it takes to
The
just
balls
just
it
go
takes to
for it.
steal home when the ball is already going there is absurd.
Absolutely.
I'll finish my Jackie Robinson spiel with 2 scenes that I really enjoyed. One, the scene where his coach on the actual Dodgers, when he makes it to the Dodgers, the first coach, the
guy who got
womanizer.
suspended?
Yeah, the womanizer. The scene where his teammates who don't want to play with him sign that petition that they don't want to play with him, and he gets wind of it, and then he gets told to tell them to shut the fuck up and play, and he tells them in the kitchen of the hotel that they're at or wherever the hell it is, listen, you motherfuckers, this isn't going to be the first one. He's not going to be the first one.
Yeah.
There's
he's not
going to
gonna be
be
the first, and
more
they're-
of them coming. Why? Because they're out there to fucking play. They're out there to be the best, to play, to reach these levels. So you motherfuckers shouldn't be worrying about petitions. You should be worrying about doing your job because you're going to fucking lose your job if you don't play better. So like that kind of support I thought was awesome.
Yep.
And then two, the scene, I was telling this to Gab last night, the scene where Jackie is playing first and the guy from the Pittsburgh
Always Pittsburgh.
steps on his ankle.
Oh yeah. The Cardinals
running
guy.
out to first. Right. Oh, the Cardinals, right. That is actually true because I looked up to see which was true, what was not. Most of the things in the movie was true. But that particular scene, they show him get hit, he goes down, and what they don't show is that the guy in real life, the guy who kicked him, says like something racial slur as he walks by. Jackie looks at him and goes, "I'll remember that." 2 seasons later, the same guy, Jackie's playing second base. The same guy hits what would be a double. He's running it out. He runs to try to, I guess, slide into second. And Jackie, instead of going down with the tag to tag him out, like you normally would in baseball, he swings up, slams him in the face, knocks like 6 teeth out, and goes, I told you I'd remember. Or like something like that. Like I told you one day I'd remember that. Or like something like that. So it's like
that's fantastic.
There were moments where Jackie was. You could at least kind of like see that Jackie did get a little bit of revenge here and there from these guys, but in a baseball setting, so it wasn't as aggressive.
Right.
But yeah, great guy, great athlete. I'm glad that they do the 42 number on everyone's back every year for an entire weekend. Well deserved. It's beautiful, and hopefully, someday soon we'll get the Roberto Clemente treatment to do the same thing for his number 21 for Latinos. For us Latinos.
I also think just the fun fact I learned when we were watching this movie, the first game that he played.
Oh, the first game he played in the majors was in Jersey City.
Was here in Jersey City.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
They unfortunately took down the stadium.
The stadium, unfortunately, was destroyed, demolished in 1985, and in lieu of a shopping center that is now looks like shit. But
I just don't understand how like that type of thing happens. I mean,
that's history.
It's a fucking history. At the very least, save the home plate like area.
Just something
and like
commemorate it.
Commemorate it that way. Like people were very stupid.
There's but there's a statue of him or something.
A statue of him in Journal Square, which I want to go take a picture of.
Yeah, I want to go take a picture of it too.
Yeah, so that's Jackie Robinson. Great movie. Gab.
Next and final movie that we're going to talk about today is the 2017 film Marshall, where Chadwick Boseman plays Thurgood Marshall. He was the first black man to serve on the Supreme Court, but the story doesn't revolve around his getting to the Supreme Court or even his most high-profile case, which I think would be
Board of Education,
Brown versus Board of Education, which I didn't know he represented until I saw this movie, which essentially resulted in the end of segregated schooling.
Right.
This actually focused on another case that he took in Connecticut, where he was representing a man named Joseph Spell, who was accused of raping a white woman named Eleanor Strubling, Strubling, played by Kate Hudson, and Joseph Spell was played by Sterling K. Brown. And then you also had Josh Gad as his co-counsel for this case. The movie plays out. I think it was an interesting choice for this film to focus when you have a figure like so many. I just said so many names. My head's discombobulated. Sorry, Thurgood Marshall. To have a character. He's a real person. To have a figure like him. And that to know there were so many like high profile cases, but the film decided to hone in on this one.
This one particularly, yeah.
And there was no alluding to ultimately what Thurgood Marshall's destiny would be.
Right.
I appreciated that a little bit because to let it be on this more micro level, on a more quote unquote local level, if you will, it was able to shed more light and hopefully transparency onto what is a common issue we know amongst that happen with black men in our legal system.
Yes.
I think this hints a little bit to Emmett Till.
Yes.
This hints to even To Kill a Mockingbird, a film we talked about not too long ago.
Yes.
It's essentially almost the same
plot.
The same
Same
plot.
type of story.
Yeah.
Only one that works out in the name of justice.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Also, I was going to check this before. I wish to know when. I know that To Kill a Mockingbird takes place in the 1930s, right? Mm-hmm. Well, this film takes place, or this story, this particular case took place in 1940.
Oh, yes.
So close in proximity to that fictional story, even though that fictional story definitely told a very strong reality. Mm-hmm. And here we have Thurgood Marshall, who was a real person, a real attorney, and how they worked to get this man justice in this false accusation. And the motives were even the same. We learned that by the end of the movie, Kate Hudson essentially told a lie.
Yes.
About the whole rape case.
As per usual.
Yep. Wait, hold on, guys. Those are acidic waters. Hold on, wait. We are not trying to diminish a woman speaking up.
Definitely not that. No.
That's not what we're going with that.
Good call there. Good call.
Yes.
Not what he meant, not what any of us are saying.
I mean it from a storytelling perspective. It seems like it happens a lot in movies and TV. With these kind of stories, it's always like the whodunit.
The whodunits, and there's more.
Always like a more to it, and not real life.
Women who speak up have the courage to speak up.
That speak up.
Absolutely,
100%.
never trying to diminish their speaking
Correct.
up.
Absolutely, 100%.
But also believing in the system of innocent until proven guilty.
Yes.
And a fair and just system.
Yes.
And what we could see in this movie early on, as they're kind of getting started with the case, especially in 1940 fucking Connecticut, there should
always be accountability, because when you do accuse someone of something as big of a crime as this, understand that, especially even like back in this time, it meant life. Like you're
right.
A lot of people lost their lives over innocent things that they didn't do.
And even so, but even for who Sterling K. Brown was playing, who was the one accused, Spell, he has this moment. He highlights a very strong point. It's that like he really is damned if he does, damned if he doesn't.
Right.
Because if he raped her, obviously he's going to go to prison for the rest of his life
Correct.
or worse. And what the truth was that it was consensual.
Right. And he'd get killed anyway.
And he'll get killed anyway for having sex with a white woman.
Right.
So it's like, what the hell is what's the justice here? And how there are so many subtle things that you can do to rig stuff, right? When they're talking about selecting the jury, were there any black people on the jury? Could there be any black people on the jury?
They tried to have one, and remember the judge was a piece of shit.
Right.
A racist piece of shit, and so was the other lawyer. So they were just denying basically anybody that could have been a black person on the jury.
In support of, right. So there was that knock.
Yeah.
The second thing was, right at the gates at the beginning of the movie, the actor from frickin' Downton Abbey, and I forgot his name, sorry. I think it's like Matthew something, who plays the asshole lawyer. He has a quick little exchange with the judge. They know each other.
Of course they do, yeah.
He asked about they asked about their families.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is inappropriate.
Right.
So already you know who he's in favor of. He benches Thurgood at the beginning, saying like, you can sit here but you can't talk.
Yeah.
So it's like he's the one who knows how to defend the case.
Cute.
It's just very obvious that it's the system in this case was basically already setting him up to fail.
Exactly.
Defending him.
It's not giving him it's always, like we say in these kind of and it's repeated throughout the film, and we know it for some of us in a little bit of the legal system. Like, it is the burden of proof is on the state to prove this man that what you're accusing of. Like, you have the burden of presenting without a shadow of a doubt this person is guilty.
Right.
But when you're going off of bullshit And the doctor is allowed to say on the stand, "Oh, we forgot to write that part down in the report, but the skin under her nails like was black and yada yada." So it's like that's already like an obstruction of like the evidence that you're presenting. So we just have to take your word for it because you say so. It ended up being true, of course, because we realized by the end that the whole thing was consensual. But it's still like, how do you? I think what's also so powerful about the movie, sorry for ranting, is that yes, they win the case. That's the spoiler. They win this case. Josh Gad's character and
I guess it wouldn't be spoilers if these are movies that are history based. So
right. Historical.
Right.
They pull it off. They win the case and they get justice for this man. But the thing that's so sobering too is right after he gets the call from Sam, I think is his name, that they won the case. Oh my God, that's so great. And he's reflecting on it. The camera pans out and you see that water fountain that he's standing next to says whites only.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that on the train ride over, which he was basically pulled out before the wrap up of that case to go defend someone else who was that the NAACP was sending him to, which was also likely some bullshit.
Right.
It never stops.
Yeah.
This story that we got to see was just one case of many. And we knew that by the end of the movie, this real life figure.
I think it was like 36 total 36 total cases, and then he lost only 3 of them.
No, he defended 32 cases in front of the Supreme Court.
Yes, that's what it was. Yeah.
So 32 is already a giant number, but that's how many he defended in front of the Supreme Court. He only lost 3 of those 32. Right. And as I was watching this movie, which did such a great job of actually including music and camera work that felt reminiscent of a whodunit.
Yeah.
Like you got the like smoothie jazz thing in the back.
Detective-y work.
Yeah. And
he
of course
kind of even spoke like the way he was talking as Thurgood. I don't know how he spoke or anything like that, but like in real life. But the way Chadwick was speaking throughout the movie was very old-timey detective.
Yeah. It's the 40s.
Yeah.
And it made me, by the end of the movie, I was like, you know what? If we have a million fucking movies about the Queen, could we get like a mini series about Thurgood Marshall's cases?
Right.
Like, I would like to see.
You know what? That's not a bad idea.
Right?
That'd
like,
be pretty interesting.
You could get you could do like a little
anthology.
Yeah.
Like kind of just like an episode of a different like high profile case he did. Maybe wrap it up with Brown versus Board of Education.
I mean, I would love to see I would love to see a movie or an episode based off of that court case as well, because that's big.
Yeah, that could be a nice little miniseries, honestly.
100%.
That'd be a great miniseries, and what a great reminder that I say.
I mean, they gave us 8 or 9 episodes on the OJ case.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like, it would fit in perfectly
as
in one of those type of shows.
Right.
It was a great reminder. These 3 films that we, I think. What's what I'm looking for? Shamefully forget. Black history is American history. Mm-hmm. Thurgood Marshall and what he did, like that's American history.
Yeah.
100%. And I really appreciate that scene. Oh, that's just this movie is so fresh in the mind. What an excellent choice of the film to highlight American hypocrisy during the time by alluding to what's happening in Nazi Germany.
Oh, yeah.
It's on the radio. It's in the newspaper. Thurgood mentions it on the steps for a minute. Yep. This is
Sam's wife's cousin gets taken by the Nazis in Poland.
In Krakow.
Yeah.
Krakow is not too far from Auschwitz, which is likely where she went. And it doesn't put the needle on it.
Right.
It lets it sit there in the background, and it lets it be there. And if you're paying attention, you recognize not only the hypocrisy of Sam, who is basically trying to be selfishly like, I want to get the fuck out of this because it doesn't concern me. Right. But it's that very attitude of I want to get out of this because it doesn't concern me, which is why the Nazis rose in Europe. Right. It's because these things go unchecked. Yeah. And if you're paying attention, it also shows the hypocrisy of America at the time. We're trying to stop this evil that's trying to take over Europe.
Meanwhile, you're doing the same kind of evil here.
We're doing the same evil to a different group of people. Right. Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere.
Yep.
And I think the movie, his portrayal of the character and how they told the story without being, they did it without being didactic, which I thought was really great, is that you could see that comparison, that juxtaposition between the two things without having to go too deep into it.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Really, really well done. I think that, I mean, for me, like these kind of movies, I love these kind of movies because it involves you throughout the whole way, because you're trying to be the detective too, trying to figure out the case, crack the case. So you're thinking like, all right, how the fuck did the cop not see her if she was in the back seat? And then when they're explaining the fact that she said that she was gagged, but then like she couldn't yell, even though the fucking gag was like a little silk like thread of fucking clothes.
But that's that detective-y shit from movies that I love.
Yeah, no, I love that. But like watching it, you're just like, oh,
yeah,
like god damn it, that makes fucking total sense.
I don't know when he's like, when John kind of grabs it, he's like, was Exhibit I this the gag?
Yeah.
Like that whole like egging on the witness. Yeah. That's the shit I love. I love
even
that
when he dumps out the pebbles and he's like, so you were throwing these?
What would you call this, sir? A pebble.
Yeah, no, it was a good movie. It was really I guess because we've seen it before, it's not a new thing. Like, like we mentioned before, it's very similar to the story in To Kill a Mockingbird in terms of like with the cases and everything. But again, to take it back to Chadwick, it's just another scenario here where he's playing a super important African American person
figure. Yeah,
and you learn from these characters. You learn like you have to stand up for what you believe. You have to. You can't sit back and let things. Things aren't going to just change if you just sit back and wait.
Yeah, you
have to go out there and you have to do what you need to do to force that change. And
you have to create it.
Right, and I just appreciate everything that Chadwick did in his career, including these 3 movies, and I'm sure the other movies that he did, all of them, I'm sure at some point touch on some sort of lesson the same way these did to me.
He definitely took it, he made it, he was conscious in making sure that he chose roles that would uplift his community and show them important figures from their history.
Right.
And then he got to play a literal superhero on screen. And then the coincidences are just like, by, I guess, tapping into the energy of actual icons from history. Right. And an icon in comic book lore, I think he solidified himself as an icon in those ranks as well. Yep. I think he's definitely.
I think it was a beautiful. I think that it's a beautiful thing to have seen that.
Yeah.
To have seen a guy so focused on portraying heroes for his community that he himself in that process becomes one himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really the most important thing that I can take away from Chadwick in his life is that do the right thing and always stay true to what you believe and it's just great on him and we're glad.
Focus on your focus.
Yeah.
Focus on your focus.
Yeah.
I think if the very least little thing that you take away from this is no excuses from an example of his life, I hope that's one we can all humble ourselves to take, is that it's I think we take life for granted. 75 is a statistic.
Yeah.
You don't know how long you got. Be intentional with your days.
Yeah.
Be intentional with your space and your time. And I think, what a great example. Short. It sucks that we didn't get to see more, but for what we did get, I think he left his mark.
Absolutely.
I agree with you.
All right. I mean, I think that's it. That's it for me. Unless you guys have anything else you guys want to add.
Did we want to touch? If we have 5 minutes, do we want to touch at all on the condition of the MCU with his absence, or leave it at that?
Look, we've kind of mentioned this before, but so Black Panther is something that obviously at this point now you have to think from a business standpoint, because it is what it is. That's the world that we're in. Mm-hmm. Black Panther 2 was slated to come out in a couple of years. So what does Disney do? Do they recast him? Do they continue the story but maybe put his sister in as Black Panther?
Do we know if
know.
anything's been filmed at all for this? Or
No, he was set to go
right?
into prep this month for the role, so nothing's been filmed.
Right.
There was nothing.
So there wouldn't even be like a little bit of footage they could use to to give us like a what's his name from Fast and the Furious?
Yeah, like a Paul Walker
Like a Paul
situation.
Walker
No,
situation.
there's
Like,
no possibility.
There
for
wasn't
that.
anything like that at all.
Oh man, that really does put them in a very
So
weird
now
predicament.
it's like you really from scratch, from zero, you have to either just cold blood, just either start number 2 with a new guy, or maybe put Black Panther's sister in, because that's how they do it in the comics. But then again, it's just, I don't know, it just wouldn't feel a smooth transition.
Yeah,
regardless.
I don't know how you can transition.
Yeah.
I think regardless, it was set for a 2022 release, also putting COVID into the mix of that, and now this. I think it's very safe to say this thing is delayed. There's no way that if and when there is a Black Panther 2, it definitely won't be in 2022.
Right.
I think, and when it comes to the conversation of retiring the character, I'm like, I feel so mixed. I think the reason why it feels like that's the thing to do now is because this literally just happened Friday. I think it's also an inappropriate conversation of talking about replacement.
Yeah.
But
I think,
in terms of how you keep it going, the thing that I'm most concerned, not necessarily about the character of Black Panther and if someone replaces them or how you keep it going. My concern is the presence and energy of Wakanda within the MCU.
Right.
Because that's the thing that I think
It's
most
it's so big,
transcended
Right.
and was resonating is how it was Wakanda was almost becoming real, right?
Right.
We got people saying Wakanda forever. During the rise in the protesting in Atlanta, I can't remember that rapper's name. T.I. was saying, this is Wakanda.
Right,
That's
right.
the example that he was using to try and communicate with the community. This transcended something. So I don't want, no matter what happens, for the presence of Wakanda to be absent as the MCU moves forward.
Yes.
Right.
That's something that no matter what happens has to continue.
Yes.
In terms of how you can keep going, or in the meantime, Shuri doesn't have to have the mantle of Black Panther. She is her own character.
Right.
The MCU has, if there's one giant thing that the MCU has succeeded at, is taking lesser known characters and catapulting them into the public consciousness.
Right.
You can take a character like Shuri just as she is. She had those Panther gauntlets at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
You could juice that up and give her something else.
Of course.
And I would even think put her in Captain Marvel 2, which I'm saying it right here on the podcast, will likely be a very heavy female ensemble movie because Marvel definitely saw Birds of Prey tank and said, "Hold my drink."
Yeah.
You thought you did the first female ensemble superhero movie? We're going to show you how you actually do it.
Yeah, you actually do it right.
And that's, I think, a great place to put Shuri in, and because that's my
Gives
biggest
everyone
concern.
a taste of her on her own.
And to let that energy of what was introduced in the Black Panther solo film, we saw it obviously in the battle in Infinity War.
Right.
Keep living on within the MCU. Black Panther, in terms of retiring him, I think honestly maybe too soon to talk about that.
Yeah.
Too soon to talk about.
We won't
that.
talk about a replacement or anything like that. We just.
But
Yeah,
how
I think it's
how
far
they
too
can
soon.
continue, and I think it's too important. It's too important.
Keeping Wakanda alive, and at the forefront, and then now pushing Shuri.
I think there's
further.
space. I think there's
Yeah.
space for Shuri as her own character to step more center stage, and that doesn't necessarily mean she has to wear that mantle.
Right.
I think the actress is also super funny and charming. She's super funny and charming in this movie too. Yep. I think she could certainly hold her own. Mm-hmm. And as we're moving into the next phase of the MCU, like this can't be missing.
Yeah.
If anything, that's how I think one of the biggest things of how you honor Chadwick, his legacy, and what he contributed. You best make sure that this fucking city and this energy and this momentum of what this created stays present in what they
yeah, I agree.
in what they
Absolutely.
keep doing.
I agree. All right, y'all.
Yeah.
Until next week.
Until next week.
Yeah.
Wakanda
Batman.
forever.
Wakanda forever, man.
Wakanda forever.
See you guys.
Purpose is an
Later.
essential element of you. It is the reason you are on the planet at this particular time in history. Your very existence is wrapped up in the things you are here to fulfill. Whatever you choose for a career path, remember the struggles along the way are only meant to shape you for your purpose. When I dare to challenge the system that would relegate us to victims and stereotypes with no clear historical backgrounds, no hopes or talents, when I questioned that method of portrayal, a different path opened up for me. The path to my destiny. When God has something for you, it doesn't matter who stands against it. God will move someone that's holding you back away from a door and put someone there who will open it for you. If it's meant for you, I don't know what your future is, but if you're willing to take the harder way, the more complicated one, the one with more failures at first than successes, the one that has ultimately proven to have more meaning, more victory, more glory, then you will not regret it. Now, this is your time.